Larry, what's up, man?
Clint, how the hell are you?
Hey, doing great. New year, new single, new stuff going on for High Plains Drifters. Man, this has been a busy time for you. We talked last around Christmas with the release of your wonderful Christmas single, Santa Bring My Girlfriend Back. What's been up, man? This is Happy New Year to you. We're knee deep into February now. How's everything going? Is the weather holding up where you are?
It looks like New England. So I guess since I live in New England, that's a good thing. We've had two big snowstorms. We haven't lost power, thank God. But there's snow everywhere, and it's a little slippery. But otherwise, not too bad.
I think we've
not like what's going on in Texas right now.
I'm in the Midwest. I'm in Missouri, and it was -10 this morning. We've got several inches of snow out there. So, yeah, when Texas is getting hit hard, that we're just in some kind of deep freeze, countrywide right now. So, I guess you got to get to Florida to escape any of this.
I'm thinking about it. My daughter has. No, seriously, my daughter has spring break coming up. I spoke to a buddy of mine today. He just landed in Jamaica. Everyone that I know who's flown recently says the planes are, third full. Everyone's careful. Everyone's masked, blah, blah, blah. Don't worry about flying, blah, blah, blah. So,
No, I agree. I just got back from the Super Bowl last week. I was at, which was.
Did you really? You were there?
Excellent. I was there. Well, we're in Missouri. We cover the Chiefs. So
you have a second life in
sport. I do. This is kind of my second life here.
Right. This is your side. Actually, it's funny you say that. One of my best friends here in the New York City area is a Kansas boy.
Oh yeah. Wow. Yep.
And was heavily invested in the Chiefs. He had the great good fortune of watching them beat his best friend's team, the Bills.
Yes.
There, but it just didn't hold up for them.
So it did not. It was 80 degrees down in Tampa when we were there. Everything was good until the game kicked off. And so now here we are trying to get back into things, man, as this is around the time of the year that typically shows start getting announced. We start making our plans for the summer, for shows. And it's still so up in the air. I mean, it's just been a crazy year, man. And I know that for you guys, it's been productive as far as the music side goes. What do you guys want to at some point try to get something together to play live? What's kind of been the talk for you guys?
We would love to. It's scheduling's a little bit difficult. We're not kids in their 20s free to drop everything and go wherever there's an opportunity to play live. We have wives and kids to answer to. Which makes just getting the band in the studio difficult sometimes. But I think that when the city reopens, we'll start playing locally. And if anybody wants us to hit the road and we can cover the gas money or whatever it is, why not?
You're a lot of people that don't know. We talked to you, not long ago. But if those that didn't hear that interview, didn't see it, you're a lawyer.
I make my living as a lawyer because not because, but we're an unsigned band. We have a little bit of help on the distribution front now from Universal, but we do everything ourselves, and you got to pay the bills somehow. And only a tiny handful of people in the music industry really make a good living, doing it. So,
well, is this kind of like are there a lot of lawyers? Are there many other individuals in your profession that can consider themselves rock stars by night? I mean, this is pretty cool, Larry.
It's pretty cool. And it's funny. I remember a conversation I had with one of my best buddies while we were at law school. And I said to him, Mike, I said, how did you end up here? And he goes, well, I couldn't be Mick Jagger. So I came to law school. I think a lot of people pursue the law out of in part, a love of the language. They think they're going to spend their lives writing interesting things. And then you get out and start practicing, and you get pretty quickly disabused of that notion. But the love of language that lawyers have is probably something that's served me well as a lyricist.
Absolutely. We got to talk about the new single, Since You've Been Gone. And I got to admit, I'm kind of blown away because I familiarized myself with your guys's self-titled debut, which came out in 2019. And there's, an eclectic mix. There's a lot of, kind of 70s rock, kind of country elements, stuff like that. This single here, this is so good. But it kind of caught me off guard. I love the song. It's got a lot of, it's a very new wave influence, shall we say, sort of how did this direction
It's,
kind of come
well,
about?
it's something that it's a direction that we started. It's a path we started going down during the first album. And in fact, if you listen to the Chris Vanderhayden's remix of our Jennifer Aniston song, you hear some of that. And there's a song that we pulled off of the debut album called He Reminds Me of You, which I wrote for one of our female backup singers to sing lead on, and she does. And she sings it phenomenally. But by that time, Greg Cohen, who produces this record, was producing us. He produced the second half of album one. And I told Greg I wanted to start finding a way to marry my, I come from the storyteller tradition of songwriting, right? If you listen to my songs, most of them have an arc and a little bit of a narrative, and they tell a story from beginning to end, kind of a 70s thing, the soft rock and Southern rock of the 70s. But most of the bands in my musical influences are 80s rock and pop, and figuring out how to marry those two things was something we didn't quite start getting a grip on until we were near the end of that first album. So we just kept going down that path on this one.
You've got some real heavy hitters here in your band. Talk about some of the other band members, and a lot of them have done some really big things, kind of prior to this. Talk about some of the guys that you're playing with.
I originally founded High Plains Drifters with two guys, John Makem, who's one of our two guitarists, John under his own name, John Makem, and under the name of his college band, which I love, Binge was the band he formed in high school or college. John's had a nice career as an indie singer-songwriter. He's licensed a lot of songs to television and film. He put out, after he stopped using the Binge name, he put out a record called Unforeseen Circumstances a few years ago, highly praised. You can find his music going back a ways. He's in shows like Dawson's Creek, Party of Five, a whole lot of things. And Charles Zarnecki, who was the other guy that I sat down with to get this thing rolling, at the time was assistant musical director for Jersey Boys on Broadway. He had conducted the New York Pops. He was a child prodigy on keyboards. I mean, an actual musical genius, like at the age of 2 or 3. Mike DeCampo, who's the other lead guitarist I had worked with on a prior project where I just contributed some songs, and DeCampo's band was the band that was recording some of my works and another guy's works. And we've been friends ever since. He's a professional guitar instructor, has been for 40 years. So we've got a group of phenomenal musicians at the core. Kyle Cassell joined us halfway through album one. He was our engineer on album one. We knew he was a drummer. And I was looking to go a little bit more up tempo and modern on something. And I pulled the original rhythm track off of a song called Virginia, which is a very country-ish Americana song on that debut album. Beautiful song. But I wanted a bit more aggression in the drum track. And I asked Kyle if he could play that, and he did. And he's been our drummer since. And he pulled in Dave Richards on bass towards the end of album one. So that's the lineup that we've had now since the last few songs on the first album. It's a stable lineup, and they record beautifully together. It's amazing to watch. I sometimes feel like the idiot in the group because I can't play an instrument. I can write the lyrics and melody, and I have ideas for music, but I don't play. And I watch these guys, and they blow me away.
Well, your vocals, I think, are, really tremendous. You're really finding your own as a vocalist. How did you kind of develop your style as not, maybe a natural, virtuoso?
I'm not musician? I was raised being told I couldn't sing.
Right.
And I didn't sing the first few songs on that debut album until Charles forced me to sing Summer Girl. And then I literally accidentally stumbled into a professional voice coach, former opera singer, and she taught me for 6 months. So now I sing, but I'm still figuring out what my voice can do. And I have to give a lot of credit, both to Charles Zarnecki for forcing me to, and then to Greg Cohen producing this record. On the Christmas song that we just did, Santa Bring My Girlfriend Back, I sang as what I think I naturally am, a bass baritone. And I take my inspiration there from people like Johnny Cash, Dean Martin, Elvis Presley, all those great classic vocalists. But Greg, when we started doing Since You've Been Gone, Greg said, I want you to sing this one higher than you're probably comfortable singing. And I said, sure, why not? So frankly, I was shocked when I did. It felt way more comfortable than I thought it would be. And we're halfway through the first album, and I'm probably singing higher on a majority of the songs than I did on album one or on the Santa song. So
Do you feel like that sort of your guys' direction that we've, the singles, like Since You've Been Gone and Nuclear Winter, songs like that, is this kind of a natural progression for you guys? I mean, you talked about kind of how the influences starting to come out in this new music. Is this just kind of a natural progression for you guys? Is this how kind of you see the band going forward?
Direction. I mean, it's a deliberate direction.
Mm-hmm.
Album one, I didn't start it knowing that I was going to finish an album. I started it with John and Charles to just do one song. It got on radio, and I told my wife, well, now we're going to do an album. It took several years. It took a long time. We went through lineup changes. But now everyone's in sync. We found out at the end of that first album that if we went old school and in the studio at the same time, in isolation booths, playing simultaneously, out 2-3 songs a day. And that's what we've been doing on this album. And I think you can hear the results. If you listen to the Santa song or Since You've Been Gone, it's a quantum leap over what we did on the first album. And I think a lot of it just has to do with the fact that the guys are recording together simultaneously in the studio, vibing off each other, off of my imperfect, what they're hearing when we're recording are really rough scratch vocals. I sing final vocals much later, but it's been unbelievable to watch. And so it seems to be working. We're going to keep going in that direction.
Well, kind of talk about some of your specific influences, because new wave is a genre that I had to go back and, kind of later in life. I'm only 37, but to go back and take a real deeper dive into the 80s and to some of the great bands. And like, I would know a single by like a band like Berlin from the movie Top Gun, not realizing that they had this whole other life as this wonderful new wave band to get into the Depeche Modes of the world. We all know that, kind of the one hit wonders from the 80s, but kind of talk about your influences and kind of some of those bands that really.
For me, it was a magical decade of music. You had all of the founders of rock still youngish, like in their 40s, making great records. I mean, for me, the 80s really began for me with the Stones in 79 with Some Girls, which finally put disco to death on radio. And like rock started between the Stones with Some Girls and the early punk and pop stuff, whether it was the Jam in the UK or the Ramones here. Rock started this great comeback, and you had like the children of the founders starting to feel and starting to record. I still think it's the best decade for, call it popular music broadly, like the best of the last 40 or 50 years. You have so many influences going on, all in the same bands. Listen to, Blondie, listen to how the Ramones did, how they redid the Needles and Pins that Sonny and Cher had done back in the 60s, or the Style Council after Paul Weller did the Jam, which was, one of the early English punk new wave bands. He did this totally different thing. And I was working like a dog as a young lawyer, often working 80, 90-hour weeks and spending more time than I probably should have in New York City's clubs between like 11 and 4 in the morning. So the influences of bands like Depeche Mode, New Order, anything with a dance beat. I mean, it wasn't disco anymore, but there was still a dance beat to those things. And, but it wasn't dance music per se. So I don't know that you're not going to listen to Nuclear Winter and hear anything like on Since You've Been Gone that would evoke any of the dance or anything New Order or like Bowie on Changes or things like that. Mm-hmm. But you're going to hear 80s influences. You may hear them a little more on another song that we almost were getting ready to mix now called not Nuclear Winter and not, there's a bossa nova tune that flips me out. But I'm spacing on the name of it. I'm sorry.
No, that's all good. What in 2021, as we look forward here, what is kind of the game plan for you guys this year as you try to kind of get your ducks in a row? You obviously get the album out, and what is target for that? What are we looking at here?
Since we're not signed, there isn't a fixed release date. It's really a question of scheduling. 3 songs are mixed, mastered, in the can. 3 songs are ready to be mixed starting next week. The other 6 songs are in various demo forms. It'll probably take us into March or April to knock out the tracks for the last 6 songs. So life being what it is, and again, none of us having the freedom to just, go lock ourselves in a studio for a couple of weeks on end because of our other obligations, we probably put this out in the 3rd quarter. That's my best guess.
Well, absolutely can't wait for that. Best of luck going forward, Larry. What you guys are doing is tremendous, and I'm a huge supporter of this. And I hope everybody will go check out the single on all digital platforms. Right, you just get it on the typical
platform,
Apple.
And a phenomenal music video coming for that single within the next couple of weeks. We'll make sure you get that too.
Oh, can't wait for that, Larry.
Very low budget, but phenomenal.
Hey,
it blew me away when I saw it.
That's tremendous.
Credit for it.
I can't wait to see that. Larry, thank you so much as always, my friend. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we will catch you again soon, my brother.
Thank you, and better luck in the Super Bowl next year, Clint.
Yeah, thank you, Larry.
All right, man.